In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I'm boycotting the Crysis Remastered Trilogy, which is a remastered collection of Crysis 1, 2, and 3 single-player campaigns, and is going to get released a month from now on October 15th. For console and PC. And look, in general, I'm a huge fan of remastered trilogies. I think it's a great way to preserve gaming history for future generations because those games are now more accessible to more people since it's on the newer systems. And of course, it's great to have the nicer graphics because it helps the game age a lot better, makes it feel more modern. So those two things are definitely very important in keeping a game preserved, modernizing it and making it more accessible. And in the case of the Crysis trilogy, it's definitely going to do those two things very well. The graphics are going to be a lot nicer, especially on consoles, because, I'm playing the 360 version of this gameplay. You could see it's not the best. The game runs at like 30 frames per second, sometimes even lower, and the textures are not very good. So why would I willingly play this game on an Xbox 360, especially since I have a really good gaming PC. I have a 2060 Super, an Intel i7 8700K. I'm able to run Crysis 3 on PC, no problem. As a matter of fact, I have the PC version of Crysis 3. I'm able to run the game at 1440p in the highest settings possible, and it looks gorgeous. It looks great, but I still play on Xbox 360 for two reasons. One reason is because I actually have a friend that still plays Crysis 3 online on 360, so I keep playing it over there just so he has someone to play with. That's one thing. The other reason is because I find the multiplayer to be a lot more enjoyable on the console than on PC. Even though the PC runs better, I've run into a good amount of players using aimbots on PC, which I have not had to deal with on console. So for those two reasons, I play the game more on Xbox than PC, and I know I'm like the only person that does that, someone who actually has a choice to play it on the better platform and does not. I do play the single-player campaign on PC, though. I will not play that on Xbox. But yeah, I'm a fan of the Crysis multiplayer. I started off in Crysis 2 on Xbox, and then I eventually got into Crysis 3. Obviously, as you can tell, I still play Crysis 3 online, but I can't play Crysis 2 due to the servers being shut down. Even on PC, they're shut down, which is really sad. And it sucks that a big part of Crysis 2 is no longer playable. And the problem with the remaster is that it does not include multiplayer. It's single player only. And of course the single player is great, but that's not the entire game. You're not preserving the entire game. You're preserving half the game at best. And to me, that just defeats the entire purpose of buying a remaster in the first place, which is to preserve it, which is to have a more modern, to have a superior version of the original game. But by not including multiplayer, your remaster by default is a downgrade, not an upgrade. Even the shitty 360 version with terrible graphics and 30 FPS at best is a more complete Crysis 3 experience than a remastered single player on PC. And the fact that I just said that definitely got me a few dislikes on the video, but that's fine. And I'm not even trying to say that Crysis multiplayer is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because it's not. Let's be honest, Crysis multiplayer was far from perfect, but it's still worth something. The fact that I'm able to find almost full matches of Team Deathmatch on Xbox 8 years after the game came out, that has to mean something, right? Like, you can be watching this video and have never played the Crysis multiplayer ever before, couldn't give less of a fuck about multiplayer being in the remaster. You can say that you personally don't care about the multiplayer, but you can't say that nobody cares, because if nobody cared, I wouldn't be able to get this gameplay right now. I and many others love the multiplayer. I really love the gunplay. I like the weapon design. I like how the weapons feel. And it's just so satisfying getting kills. Especially when you finally learn and understand the game properly. You know how the recoil patterns are in each weapon. Because it's not as simple as Call of Duty where there's barely any recoil in your weapons and you just pretty much point and shoot and that's it. I love COD, but let's be real. I like how Crysis has so many layers to it. I also love the movement system in the game. Feels very unique, unlike any other game that I ever played before. And people seem really excited about the new feature in Battlefield 2042 where you can customize your weapon attachments while you're in game. Crysis actually did that first, where you can customize your weapons and put different attachments in them while you're in the middle of a match, and you can see the different attachments going into your guns in-game, which I think is really cool. And then, of course, you also have the invisibility cloak and the different armor abilities, which added even more depth to the multiplayer experience and kind of gave a unique thing to Crysis. You also have interactable environments. You can, take a vent off of the wall and use it as a riot shield, and you can also throw things around the map, like cars and other objects, use them against the enemy, kind of like what you can do in the single player. Map design's pretty good, too. And I think the multiplayer overall is pretty solid and adds a lot more hours to my gameplay than if it was just single player. Every Crysis game up until this point has had multiplayer included in the game. Between Crysis 1, Crysis Warhead, Crysis 2, Crysis 3, Crysis has always had multiplayer alongside the campaign. Campaign will always be the best part about the game. Doesn't mean that you can't include the rest of it too. Just imagine not only having Crysis 2 back online, but having crossplay. So you can play with all your friends no matter what platform they're on. And also, it being a new release, you'll have a lot of new players coming into the multiplayer that never played it before. That way I can get matched up against some noobs, because the players that play Crysis today are really fucking good. Too good for me. So it'd actually be nice to get some new players in the lobbies for a change. But Crytek was like, nah, we can't be bothered. Single player's all you get. Deal with it. Well, if that's the case, then I'm just simply not interested. Same thing with Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection on PS4. Never bought it. Even though I'm a huge Uncharted fan, no multiplayer for Uncharted 2 and 3. Fuck you. Those were great multiplayers, and now they're gone, because the servers were shut down. And that makes me really upset. I'm someone that's really passionate about preserving older games. I mean, you know, my whole channel is literally playing old games. Between the old Call of Duty games, the old Battlefield games, Battlefront. I just recently made a video playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, and not the EA one, the old one, the original from 2005. Those of you who have been subscribed for a while know how passionate I am about keeping these older games going, keeping them alive and relevant. Especially when it comes to online multiplayer, because you know that with online multiplayer, it's not as timeless as a single player campaign that you can just play at any time. But with online, you need like actual people to play with, right? And you also need the servers to stay up. So that's why I put more of an emphasis on multiplayer in my videos. But I have been kind of experimenting with co-op and that kind of stuff, especially with COD. I've been doing survival mode in all the games, zombies. But I'm definitely someone that cares a lot about multiplayer, PvP. Because even if you have a really, really good single player, for me personally, I'm not going to play it more than 2 times. I'm going to put a lot more time into multiplayer, naturally, because multiplayer has more variety, it has more replayability. Not saying it's better than single player, but it's an important thing. That's why I continue to boycott Doom Eternal due to a lack of multiplayer. And I have a funny feeling that the Uncharted remaster on PS5 and PC will also be single player only. And if that's the case, I won't buy it either. No, it's just a really bad trend to remaster part of a game and not the whole game. It's complete bullshit and goes against the entire purpose of a remaster. You're not preserving shit if I have to go back and forth between the new version and the original version of the game in order to get the full experience. Like, come on. And realistically, who knows how much longer the Crysis 3 servers will be up. That's the other part of the equation. And not for nothing, but if I were to think of a game that really desperately needed a remaster, Crysis would be at the very bottom of the list. I mean, I guess with console, it definitely can use one. I mean, looking at this gameplay, the console versions of Crysis 3 didn't age well when it came out, never mind 8, 9, 10 years later, right? But if you're a PC gamer, there's literally no reason to even have this. And the Crysis 1 remaster wasn't even any good, because they originally did the first one. It wasn't even a good remaster, so why would people want more of this crap? It ran like shit, and in some cases it even didn't look as good as the original game, because it was based off the 360 and PS3 version. I know it's going to be handled a little bit differently for Crysis 2 and 3, but still, my expectations aren't even that high as far as how they can accomplish a remaster of all those games. And there's also no Crysis Warhead Remastered, which is another shitty thing. Never thought I'd see a studio make a more useless and a more pointless remaster than Kingdoms of Amalur, because that was another waste of time and money. Well, this seems to be an even bigger waste than that. But all that aside, it just seems pointless to me. You don't need to make Crysis look even better than it already does. It still looks like a modern game, and is still pushing a lot of PCs to their very limit. So I think a Crysis remaster is just so unnecessary if you're a PC gamer, which is what I am, even though I'm playing it on Xbox right now. But it really is a bummer. I'm very disappointed in Crytek's decision to only do single player. I don't really understand the justification for it either, because I'm pretty sure if they did remaster the multiplayer, you'd have a lot of players coming in, and there's also potential for them to monetize it and make a good amount of money off of skins and cosmetics and all that kind of stuff, like Master Chief Collection is right now. I don't really understand. I could see if multiplayer just nobody ever played it, but that's not true. Obviously, people are still playing it now, so I have no plans on ever buying this shit. But let me know what you guys think. Are you guys interested in buying the Crysis Remastered Trilogy, and do you care about the lack of multiplayer? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.